Discover the incredible transformation of a cattle baron who thought he'd married an ugly Strang. In the heart of Texas, Ben Thompson, a man adored for his million-acre ranch and revered for his business acumen, stood on the precipice of collapse. The cattle market was crashing. Debts were piling up like the rusting fences dilapidating his land. Yet, in his mind, amidst this mounting ruin, the most belittling anguish crawled beneath the surface. His wife, Clara. Beneath her modest exterior lay a pure spirit, one he had overlooked for years, and it gnawed at his insides like a relentless hunger, even as storms brewed above his legacy. It wasn't just the ranch dwindling. It was his self-worth that felt equally tethered to his wife's plainness. He'd find himself staring out at the horizon, judgment simmering. Am I really that shallow? He'd hesitate, even as dismissive thoughts urged him to ignore her warmth, seeking beauty instead in Texas's wild sunsets. Each time Clara's laughter broke into the stillness of the ranch, he felt the clench of unease. The dazzling shimmer of society was slipping, and the unremarkable woman by his side became the reflection of everything he feared: failure, unsophistication, and a mirror to his own insecurities. The house, a grand monument of success, now appeared to close in on him. His wife, endlessly devoted, was busy in the kitchen, flavors infusing the air, but he couldn't see the magic in it. He could only perceive the mundane. It was only a matter of time before whispers of Clara's cooking reached him, whispers that turned into admiration, which clashed violently with Ben's notions of worth. How could a simple casserole draw accolades where his empire couldn't? With each praise Clara received, his pride shrieked in protest. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But then, disaster struck. A phone call rattled him from the depths of his turmoil. His brother, a rock in the family, had met with an accident. The news shattered their already delicate framework. Ben felt a hollow ache, a drowned grief entangled with the weight of his prior judgments. Would this tragedy finally force him to see the strength behind Clara's laughter? And as the walls closed in, he found himself struggling to juxtapose Clara's essence with the whirlwind of internal chaos. Memories of their early days, painted in dusty hues of love and dreams, felt lost against a backdrop of perceived superiority. With a small-town hero now under the harsh spotlight of fate, Ben stood at the intersection of despair and revelation. Clara's rekindled spirit rose like a beacon, yet all he could feel was the tension between his ego and the undeniable truth that threatened to set him free. Could he peel back the layers of pride that held him captive? Would he dare to gaze beyond Clara's unassuming exterior into the depths of her soul? The answers hung in the air, heavy and unresolved, as the reality of loss sifted through the cracks of their existence, darkening what was left of the facade, leaving readers to wonder if he could learn to cherish the true depth of their bond, or continue sinking in the shadows of his past. The sun emerged weakly over the horizon, casting an unsteady light across the land, a reflection of Ben's turbulent emotions. He stood at the balcony of their home, the railing cold against his hands, gripping it as if holding on to sanity. Clara had retreated into the house, retreating into her world of scents and spices, while Ben fought the swell of judgment clouding his vision. He could see the cattle grazing in the distance, unaware of the storm brewing within the man who owned them. A slow realization began to dawn on him, one he had fought to suppress. The image of his brother lying injured, burdened by the fragility of life, gnawed at him. It was a painful juxtaposition of humanity against the backdrop of pride. a truth he had avoided through years of negligence. If life could be so fleeting, what was the worth of his delusions about beauty? He closed his eyes, forcing himself not to picture Clara's face, yet inevitably her laughter echoed in his thoughts with a warm clarity, drowning the screams of his doubts. The gathering clouds did not only shadow the land, they mirrored his conscience. Each rolling wave of thunder urged him to confront the uncomfortable reality he had tried to ignore. Clara was more than the lackluster companion he had judged her to be. In his quest for external validation, he had missed the abundant authenticity she radiated. But now, with the weight of potential loss palpable, he felt the gears inside him start to shift. Ben knew he had to explore this conflict rather than retreat into denial. He turned abruptly and marched down the staircase, the wood creaking beneath him, a reluctant reminder of the life lived under the gloss of superficiality. As he walked into the kitchen, he was met by the comforting aroma of roasted chicken, Clara at the stove, blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing inside him. "Hey there," she smiled, bright and sincere, her hands busy attending to simmering sauces. Ben hesitated. "Clara, can we talk?" Her brow furrowed slightly, surprise lacing her features, yet she nodded. They moved to the small table in the corner, where the sun caught her auburn hair in a halo. However, the familiar warmth was now laced with an atmosphere heavy with tension. Ben felt the solid ground beneath him turn unstable as he steeled himself for what had to be said. "I've been thinking. About us," he started, the words strangely heavy, yet liberating. "What about us?" Clara asked, tilting her head, concern flickering across her face. He looked down, temporarily lost for words. He could taste vulnerability on his tongue, bitter yet sweet. "It's just, I feel like I've taken so much for granted. The ranch, my status, and—" His voice faltered. The fear that he would slide back into avoidance gripped him, yet he pushed through. "And you?" She remained silent, and the weight of his admission hung in the air. "I've overlooked everything you are, your strength, your kindness, even the way you cook." He could see her shoulders tense slightly, evidence of the years of dismissals. "But how can I keep pretending that it's just not enough? Because I've been wrong. You bring joy into my life." Ben could see the surprise gradually shifting to confusion in her eyes. "What are you saying?" He felt a surge of boldness unraveling within him as he pressed on. "I'm saying that I want to see you as you truly are, not as I've deemed you to be. I've realized that beauty has nothing to do with what the world expects, but everything to do with what is felt." The room fell silent, pulsating with unspoken words and emotions, both aching and hopeful. In her gaze, Ben finally recognized the flicker of strength he had dismissed for so long. But with that understanding came the unsettling thought. Was this awakening enough to heal their fractured relationship, or was it merely the beginning of a more profound chaos? As Clara opened her mouth to respond, Ben could feel the weight of impending truths pushing against the door, waiting to burst forth. He braced himself, knowing the path ahead would lead to more revelations. Would he be ready to embrace the storm? The moment loomed dangerously close, filled with promise yet shrouded in uncertainty, teasing them both with what was yet to come. As Clara's lips parted, her words caught in a taut silence, Ben stood on the precipice of a moment that could shift the very foundation of their lives. He felt the air thicken, suffocating him with anticipation. What would she say? He sensed the depth of what hung in the balance, a connection fractured yet yearning to be mended. The uncertainty gnawed at him, but also fueled a burgeoning resolve. "I want to understand," Clara finally said, her voice steady, yet laced with doubt. "But where do we even begin?" The question stung with its straightforwardness. A lifetime of reluctance loomed between them. It was this moment of raw vulnerability where Ben had a choice: to delve deeper into the wreckage he'd created, or to retreat back to the well-trodden path of neglect. Something inside him pushed him forward. "We begin by acknowledging our truths, Clara," he replied, his voice firm and sure even as his heart raced. He reached across the table, bridging the gap with his hand, an overture laden with significance. "I've been blind. You've been here, offering me everything, and I brushed past it because of my own delusions about what I thought beauty meant. This," he gestured to the surrounding home, their shared life, "it isn't just mine. It's ours. I want to build something genuine." Clara looked at him, eyes shimmering with unspent feelings. "What if I don't understand you fully yet? What if our ideas about beauty are too far apart?" "Then we'll navigate that distance together," he asserted, firmness mingling with tenderness. "We don't have a map, but we can create one as we go." Her forehead furrowed, revealing the weight of confusion. "But we're built on your notions of beauty and success. What if this," she pointed between them, "isn't enough?" Every word that hung between them exposed layers of unrest, yet Ben felt the contours of something emerging from those vulnerabilities, a deeper understanding of not just Clara, but of himself. It is enough. It has to be. We can redefine what it means to be beautiful. It isn't about perfection or societal approval. It's about connection, acceptance, and love. But I need you to meet me halfway. For the first time, Ben noticed the glimmer of hope flashing in her eyes, a testament to her buried strength yearning for expression. Would she, too, channel the courage to set foot into this new terrain? "What if I told you I felt unwanted too?" Clara confided, her voice softening, tracing the contours of their intertwined struggles. "For so long, I've believed that I wasn't enough for you, or anyone. I was afraid to share that fear, thinking it would only push you further away." The vulnerability in her words cut like a blade through the din of their shared history. In exposing her own frailty, she laid the groundwork for a new path forward. Yet it wasn't just her revelation that transformed the atmosphere. It was the realization within Ben as well. If Clara's strengths were hidden beneath layers of self-doubt, what remained lurking within him? Suddenly, an unexpected surge of energy coursed through him. This was more than a declaration. Creating something new required not only bravery, but also the willingness to unearth what lay within his own soul. He needed to confront the very biases he'd held, examining the shards of masculinity and pride that had held him hostage for so long. As they exchanged glances, Ben sensed the tone of their conversation shifting. The chasms between them were both echoes of old resentments and a pathway for emerging intimacy. Could he reveal his own insecurities without feeling like he was crumbling? Could he be vulnerable without fear? "Clara, I know now that I want to discover not only you, but also myself, alongside you," he declared as the gravity of his awareness unraveled before them. "And in doing so, I face a reality I've long ignored. My pride, my expectations, my own version of beauty that never welcomed imperfection. I need to acknowledge that." As her expression softened, Ben felt the weight of a collective reckoning wash over them, hinting at a heavy, shared truth, yet untapped. Just beneath the surface lay a volatile mix of hope and fear, mingling freely in the charged atmosphere. "Then it's time we crumbled those illusions, isn't it?" Clara said, her voice steady once more, emboldened. He nodded, the silence now one of mutual understanding rather than uncertainty. Together, they were poised at the brink of a transformative journey, and Ben realized that true beauty was about to emerge from the chaos. But as he caught the resolve in Clara's eyes, a shadow flickered at the edge of his consciousness. Would their evolving relationship withstand the pressures of change, or would the very foundations that held them together crack under the weight of new truths? The air was thick with questions, waiting to be answered, as their next steps loomed ever closer, stark and undeniable. In the days that followed, Ben found himself entwined in an internal wrestling match, shadowed by the realization that vulnerability was not just a tool for connection, but a necessity for growth. Each interaction with Clara became a new test, challenging him to confront his long-standing beliefs about masculinity, success, and intimacy. The morning light spilled through the kitchen window as he brewed coffee, the ritual feeling oddly grounding amid the chaos of their emotional upheaval. He glanced at Clara, sitting at the table, sketching in her notebook. A silent observer of her world, he felt both admiration and fear. How could he be worthy of the woman who laid bare her fears and imperfections before him? Her talent, once obscured by his misconceptions, now dazzled him with its authenticity. "Do you think it's too late to redefine our expectations?" he asked, breaking the silence. His pulse quickened as he voiced the question that haunted him. Clara looked up, her brow creasing as she focused on him. "It's never too late, Ben," she replied thoughtfully. "But it starts with a decision. We can shape what's next, but it requires both of us to be authentic." Her words struck a chord, igniting something inside him. A flicker of hope intertwined with dread. Could he truly navigate the complexities of being his genuine self while exposing the layers of his identity? He attempted to dive deeper into this introspection in the days that followed, surprising himself by jotting down his own reflections during quiet moments. It felt foreign, yet freeing to articulate his thoughts that had long been neglected in the pursuit of superficial success. The journal became a confidant, a vessel for his fears and desires that he shared with no one. Their conversations shifted, becoming more profound and laden with newfound intent. Each word felt like a brick in the wall they were slowly dismantling, allowing fresh air and light to flood in. "Tell me about your biggest fear," Ben asked one evening, the question hanging in the air like a tightrope, waiting for them to balance precariously upon it. Clara hesitated, the shadow of her vulnerability darkening her features. "I fear that if we explore these depths together, I might not like what I find in you, or myself." Her honesty resonated painfully but beautifully, spurring a swift understanding within him. "What if I told you I have that same fear? My self-image has been so tightly wound up in being the perfect man, but that perfection may not align with who I am meant to be." For the first time, he didn't feel the urge to suppress this truth. Instead, he allowed it to spill into their space, and he could see it reflected back in Clara's widened eyes. They stood on the precipice of something unfathomable, a landscape painted with their raw truths. "I want to do this," he suddenly asserted, desire blazing through him. "I want to find what exists beneath those facades. But to do that, I need to dig deep into what I've long ignored." Clara nodded slowly, the warmth in her expression revealing her own burgeoning resolve. "Then we embrace the unknown together. Every fear has its counterpart in strength, and perhaps we'll discover more about ourselves along the way." As they grasped the edges of this uncharted territory, Ben felt time ticking with agonizing speed. While they were binding together with threads of honesty, the lingering specters of their pasts posed immediate constraints. Would they truly emerge from this transformative exploration unscathed? Or would the truths they unearthed rip apart the fabric of who they believed themselves to be? With every revelation came the possibility of upheaval, a reality that loomed perilously close. The photographs on the wall caught his eye, mementos of better days. Those captured smiles felt far away now. Could they reclaim that joy without succumbing to the weight of buried past expectations? "Clara," he began, his voice more delicate yet steady. "What happens if the journey leads us to places we never anticipated? Will we come out stronger or fractured beyond repair?" Her gaze was unwavering, reflecting both fear and determination. We can't let fear dictate our path. We owe it to ourselves to explore the depths, no matter how unsettling. He took a breath, the weight of her words heavy, yet invigorating. The journey had begun in earnest, and though fear coiled around them, newfound courage sparked in its wake. But as they stood on the brink of this deep dive, Ben felt the apprehension gnawing at the edges of his purpose. The shadows of their transformation whispered tales of unforeseen challenges. Would they be prepared for the emotional storms ahead? With that thought echoing in his mind, he resolved it was time to confront the very paradigm of his identity, all while wondering what sacrifices would be required to break free from his past and move toward a more authentic version of himself. The day began like any other, but Ben felt an unusual energy coursing through him. The weight of Clara's words lingered, a reminder that he stood at a crossroads, the impact of which could reshape his entire being. He took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the lingering smell of the breakfast Clara had prepared. Each bite tasted different now, a reflection of the change brewing within him. As they ate, he couldn't shake the realization that their dialogue had evolved into a catalyst for his own awakening. "Have you ever thought about the stories we tell ourselves?" Ben asked, surprising himself with the question. The conversation that morning felt almost sacred, an exploration rather than idle chatter. Clara paused, her fork hovering mid-air. "What do you mean? I mean, what if the story we believe about who we are and what we can achieve is not our own? What if it's just expected?" He leaned in, his heart racing through the vulnerability. "My whole life, I've been the successful one, the one who never falters. But that success feels hollow when I really confront it." "I understand," Clara replied softly. "It can be terrifying to realize that our identities are crafted by other people's expectations rather than our own desires." The piercing honesty in her eyes spurred him on. He was tired of hiding behind the facade of perfection. "I want to rewrite my story, Clara, but it's daunting to even consider what that means. Am I prepared to face the consequences of breaking away from who I thought I had to be?" "Only you can decide that," she said, her voice steady, yet compassionate. "All I know is that transformation doesn't happen without discomfort. It's part of the journey." Every moment of this conversation peeled off layers he never knew he had. The realization struck him that vulnerability was not merely an act of sharing. It was an active pursuit of honesty with oneself first. What lay beneath the surface of Ben, the man defined by societal expectations, was an individual writhing to emerge. After breakfast, he grabbed his journal, the ink-splattered pages now a testament to his evolution. He began to jot down the scenarios in which he felt trapped by his identity. Each word was a step toward liberation, illuminating the aspirations he'd repressed. Writing, once a method of simply documenting his life, became a sacred practice of self-discovery. What if he began to draft not just his fears, but also the dreams he'd buried? In the ensuing days, each entry revealed truths that startled him. Fear had turned into something tangible, something he could confront. But even as he bared these thoughts, a shadow loomed, the fears of disappointing Clara and himself, the trepidation of losing the comfortable life he knew. One evening, amidst a particularly intense session of writing, he realized there was a recurring thread in his reflections, the desperate need for approval. He had chased accolades to fill an abyss of self-doubt. What he discovered was profoundly unsettling, yet invigorating. He didn't just long for personal growth. He craved authenticity. He required a bond that transcended facades. "Ben?" Clara's gentle voice broke through his thoughts, wrapping around him like a warm blanket. "Are you okay?" He looked up, seeing genuine concern embedded in her gaze. "I'm more than okay. I'm unraveling all these lies I've been living.
but I need to ask you something." Her eyes widened slightly, and he could feel the weight of the moment pressing upon them.
"What if I misstep? What if, in stripping away these layers, I expose something you'll find unworthy? I fear I can only offer fragments of myself now." As the words fled his mouth, Ben wished he could grab them back, the vulnerability taking on a life of its own. Clara regarded him thoughtfully, her silence tangible, and he could feel the pulse of his anxiety rise. But then she softened, her demeanor allowing space for honesty. "If that's who you are, then yes, it may change things. But I believe there's beauty even in the fragments. We owe it to each other to embrace the complete picture, not just the polished version." Her courage fed into his growing determination. They were no longer just tiptoeing around each other's vulnerabilities. They were fully diving into the depths together. Yet, as the waves of authenticity began to crash around them like a long-held storm finally breaking, Ben couldn't help but wonder. Was he ready to expose the full spectrum of his being, considering what lay on the other side of his transformation? That night, as he settled into bed, he made a decision: to embrace every discomfort and uncertainty ahead. The journey toward authenticity had begun, but the intensity of the challenges yet to come loomed large. Just as he began to drift off, he was struck by a bold thought. The next conversation they had could potentially reshape the very core of their relationship. Were they prepared for whatever awaited them beyond the horizon? Ben awoke the next morning with a gnawing anticipation. His decision from the night before felt both liberating and ominous, a delicate balance hanging by the thinnest thread. As sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the dust motes in the air, he acknowledged that each day would demand more from him. More honesty, more courage, more vulnerability. He slipped into his usual morning routine, but this time, the mundanity felt starkly juxtaposed against the tides of change within him. He brushed his teeth with an almost mechanical precision, but each action now felt like a ritual, a step towards something greater. After showering, Ben sat down with his journal, staring at the blank page, hoping for the revelations that had seemed to flow so effortlessly in previous days. But today, he hesitated, fingers hovering over the pen as self-doubt bubbled up. What did he truly want to write? The thoughts swirled, fear of inadequacy, the exhilaration of possibility, and the overpowering urge to protect himself from disappointment. He scribbled down a few phrases: fear of missteps, the need for approval, the idea of authenticity. And then he paused. What did truly embracing authenticity look like for him, beyond mere words? What actions could he take to align his external life with the revelations he was exploring internally? The image of Clara appearing at his side loomed large in his thoughts. Their deep conversations held the potential for more, but now he faced the realization that they also held the risk of painful confrontation. He knew he needed to be honest with her, not just about himself, but about their relationship. The mere thought sent a ripple of anxiety through him. After several attempts to articulate his thoughts, he decided that avoiding this conversation with Clara would be a far greater risk than confronting it. He could no longer let fear dictate his life. The stakes were too high. As he prepared for work, he practiced the conversation in his mind, mentally rehearsing his words. He envisioned venturing into the uncomfortable but necessary territory of discussing their relationship. Would Clara comprehend that while he sought authenticity, he simultaneously feared losing the very connection that drove him toward growth? The office buzzed with energy as Ben arrived, yet the normally familiar hustle felt foreign. Conversations that once felt like background noise transformed into a cacophony that took on new meaning. With each meeting he attended, Ben realized that pretending was becoming increasingly unbearable. His colleagues bantered about weekend plans, and he felt an ever-increasing weight pressing on his chest. When the clock struck noon, Ben found himself at the coffee shop around the corner, avoiding the stifling confines of his office. He sat and observed people around him, couples sharing laughter, friends animatedly conversing, people simply existing in their truth. Deep down, he craved that level of openness. Then it hit him like a bolt of electricity. Was it only Clara he was concerned about disappointing, or did he also fear letting himself down? The weight of inflated expectations, both external and internal, fluctuated in his mind. It became clear that if he wanted to cultivate a life of authenticity, he had to confront the ghosts of his self-imposed expectations as well. Back at his desk, he plunged into a project he previously avoided, one that encouraged creativity outside the boundaries of corporate norms. It felt exhilarating and terrifying simultaneously. This was a manifestation of the authenticity he desired, a tentative step toward integrating who he really was with what he did. As he brainstormed, newfound ideas gushed forth, unhindered by the need for validation. His supervisor passed by and raised an eyebrow at his fervent energy. "What's going on, Ben? You look like you've just found the holy grail of projects." Ben offered a genuine smile, unfiltered for the first time. "Feels like I might be uncovering something important, you know, just digging deeper." But as soon as the words escaped, doubt seeped in again. He imagined the impact of pursuing a path more aligned with his true self, uncharted territory fraught with uncertainty. How would the company react? Would they value his vision as much as he did? The closing thoughts of the day loomed over him as he returned home. Would Clara recognize this shift? Would she support him or recoil in confusion? That evening, as they prepared dinner, Ben felt the urge to broach the subject. It bubbled just beneath the surface, wrestling with the uncertainty of how Clara might respond. "I've been reflecting a lot, and I think it's time we talk about us," he began, steeling himself for the exchange. Clara paused, her attention sharpening. "About us?" His heart raced as he prepared to dive into the depths of vulnerability. The moment had arrived. Would she embrace this journey with him? With each word he spoke, Ben sensed the mounting tension, the thrilling uncertainty of uncovering their intertwined stories. As he ventured further, he was unaware of the life-altering revelations that awaited both of them just around the corner. Would they emerge stronger, or would the weight of truth fracture the very foundations they tried to rebuild? Ben's words hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament, shimmering with potential, yet perilous to shatter. Clara's unwavering gaze narrowed, as if she were trying to decode a complex puzzle laid out before her. The air felt thick with unspoken truths, and Ben could feel the creaking tension of their shared uncharted territory. "Talk about us how?" Clara asked, her voice steady, but tinged with concern. The familiarity of her tone soothed Ben, yet he braced himself, aware of the delicate nature of this initiation into authenticity. "About where we stand. About what we want from this relationship," he stated, his voice revealing the rhythm of his heart pounding against his chest. It was a dance between clarity and fear, one that he hoped Clara would join. She leaned back, folding her arms, a defensive gesture rarely seen, but now proving to be a stark reminder of the vulnerability he was about to unveil. "Why now, Ben? Are you questioning us?" "Not questioning, more evolving." He paused, searching for the right words. He was desperate to avoid merely regurgitating the clichés that had cluttered his past conversations. "I've been reflecting on what it means to be real, to be authentic. I can't keep putting on a mask with you or anyone. All these moments, they matter too much." Clara's eyes softened momentarily, then narrowed as internal thoughts flickered across her face. "I want you to be genuine too, but does that mean we need to change everything about what we have?" That question ignited a small fire within him, the uncomfortable heat of vulnerability materializing as truth. "I don't know if we need to change everything, but I think we need to understand what makes us us. As the evening unfolded, Ben sensed a challenge brewing between them. Clara's silence became contemplative, almost stifling, forcing him to confront the looming spectre of his own inadequacies. What if in striving for authenticity, he tore their relationship apart? Or worse, what if he succeeded at the cost of authenticity itself? He pressed on, hoping honesty would break the dam that seemed to hold their issues at bay. This journey I'm on isn't just about me. I need you to be part of it. I'm scared of losing us, but I fear that hiding my true self will lead to something worse. Clara's expression fluctuated from confusion to apprehension, her body energy shifting like waves in a restless sea. I appreciate you wanting to share your process, but what does that mean for me? What am I supposed to do with this? I don't expect you to have answers right away. I just wanted to be open, to give us a chance to explore this together. I don't want to hide anything anymore. The room grew quiet, the smell of dinner wafting around them, stirring nostalgia in the air that contrasted painfully with the unease between them. Ben longed for a shared laughter, an acknowledgement, a nod of understanding. But Clara's silence felt monumental, amplifying the uncertainties racing through his mind. "Okay," she finally said, "but promises are different from actions. How do you actually intend to make this work? Authenticity doesn't come without its costs. Are you ready to face that?" Her words sliced through him like a cold wave, and he grappled with the weight of her challenge. What if he plunged into this new world, only to discover a greater chasm between them? "I don't know," he admitted, "but I need to try. I can't afford to let fear control me anymore." Clara nodded, still skeptical but visibly moved by his unguarded vulnerability. The realm of possibility opened before them, yet shadows lingered, threatening to blur their path forward. As they resumed chopping vegetables, an unspoken tension remained, each slice echoing in the silence. Would they emerge from this? Would they find a common footing on the shaky ground of authenticity? The question loomed, a haunting spectre draped in uncertainty, as Ben finished stirring the pot simmering on the stove. He felt the gravity of change, but where would it lead them? An uncharted territory awaited, riddled with the potential for both growth and heartache. But just as Clara began to speak again, the sudden buzz of Ben's phone interrupted, sending a jolt of apprehension racing through him. It was a message from his supervisor, one that hinted at upcoming changes in the company, the kind that could either bolster his emerging vision or threaten to unravel everything he was trying to build. In that moment, Ben understood that the landscape of his professional life was about to intersect dramatically with his personal evolution. The stakes were higher than ever, and as uncertainty loomed, he realized this was only the beginning. How would he balance these two pivotal aspects of his identity while seeking authenticity? What decisions would test not only his personal values, but the very foundation of his burgeoning journey? Ben stared at the glowing screen of his phone, the message from his supervisor pulsing like a beacon in the dim light of the kitchen. Upcoming changes echoed ominously in his mind, a phrase laden with both promise and peril. He had been attempting to shift his life's trajectory toward openness and honesty, yet now the very foundation of his professional future threatened to unravel. With a deep breath, he put down the ladle and faced Clara. Her brows knitted together, her curiosity piqued by his sudden stillness. "What is it?" Her question hung heavy in the air, combining concern with an undercurrent of impatience. "It's work," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, though his heart raced. "There might be changes coming. I don't know what that means yet." Clara stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking as she reached for his arm, her warmth grounding his scattered thoughts. "Are you worried about your job?" "More like it could change everything," he admitted, wrestling with the invasive possibilities that crowded his thoughts. I've been trying to find a way to blend who I am at work and who I am at home, but this feels like a reset button. I just started to untangle myself from the fears holding me back, and now there's this." He could see the wheels turning in her mind. She wasn't just processing his confession, but also digging deeper into its implications. "What do you think it means for your journey? The one you just opened up about?" The enormity of her question struck him. It was a realization that he couldn't merely wallow in self-doubt. This was an opportunity, a moment that demanded action. "I need to seize this situation, find a way to craft my narrative. I can't let fear dictate my professional path, just as I'm learning not to let it dominate my personal life." Clara remained quiet, allowing him space to chew over his newfound determination. But the silence was thick, heavy, with a tension that churned restlessly. What if he couldn't manage both? What if the upcoming changes were too overwhelming to anchor into his hard-won authenticity? "I can either fight against these changes or adapt," Ben continued, his voice gaining strength. "If they're not in alignment with who I'm becoming, then they simply don't serve me." Clara's gaze sharpened as he spoke, realization dawning. "And that's exactly the shift. You're not just talking about your relationship with me, but with your entire life." "Yes," he said, bolstered by her insights. Each word he expressed fueled a surging tide of resolve. "I want to stop waiting for permission, for validation. Whether it's being myself with you, or stepping into the professional role I aspire to be, I want to take control." The transformation felt palpable, a recalibration of his inner compass guiding him to new horizons. In that moment, he recognized the hidden competencies he had been nurturing despite his insecurities. His ability to adapt, to embrace change, was blossoming. But with this revelation came a chilling question. What if the changes at work challenged the very core of his identity? "Are you prepared for what might come?" Clara asked cautiously. "They could ask you to become someone you no longer want to be." He weighed her words carefully, understanding the gravity of her concern. "The moment we decide to face change is the moment we define who we truly are. I can't retreat into the shadows of fear. I have to be willing to risk instability to claim my authenticity, both at home and at work." Yet, doubt still trickled in. Would he have the strength to withstand whatever obstacles might surge his way? As he grappled with his thoughts, another notification from his phone blinked impatiently, an incoming call from his supervisor. Their eyes locked, a mix of anticipation and trepidation pulsating between them. The next few moments would reshape everything, pushing the boundaries of his self-discovery further than he ever envisioned. Would he recognize himself after this call? Could he balance the pressure to conform with the drive for authenticity? What catalysts for change awaited him in the conference room tomorrow? As Ben's resolve strengthened, the call loomed as both a challenge and an opportunity, each ringing tone resonating with possibilities just out of reach. The moment of truth was now approaching, a dawn of potential waiting to be seized. Ben's heart thumped loudly in his chest, each ringing tone of his phone striking a chord of tension and anticipation. Clara gave him a reassuring nod, but he could see the flicker of concern in her eyes. He took a deep breath and answered the call, his voice betraying none of the trepidation clawing at his insides. "Hello?" he said, his tone deceptively calm. "Ben, thanks for picking up. Can we talk about the upcoming changes?" His supervisor's voice was steady, but there was a notable edge that hinted at significant shifts. "Sure. What do you need from me?" Ben replied, unwilling to give in to the anxiety threatening to overtake him. "I've been reviewing restructuring plans," his supervisor began, the words rolling out like a machine, devoid of any human warmth. "We're redefining roles in the department based on employee strengths, and I think this could be a good fit for you. We want to leverage your adaptability and—" As he listened, Ben's mind raced. Leveraging adaptability sounded great, but what did it mean in practice? Would he be pushed to embrace change solely to serve the company's agenda? How much of himself would he have to compromise in the name of progress? And there will be project leadership opportunities, the supervisor continued, snapping Ben back to the conversation. We need someone who can manage teams creatively and help the company pivot into new markets. The prospect was tantalizing. It tickled the edges of his ambition. But that flickering doubt sparked within him again. Is this going to require a shift in my role? What about the projects I'm currently handling? Some roles won't be necessary moving forward, and we may ask for your involvement in projects that conflict with those. Ben's stomach sank. Change congealed around him, thick with implications. He swallowed hard, grounding himself as he took another breath. I appreciate the opportunity, but I need to ensure I can still be true to who I am. I won't let my commitment to authenticity wither in the face of new responsibilities. There was a pause on the other end before his supervisor responded. You have to trust that this can be advantageous for your career. You'll find new outlets for your abilities. The call ended, leaving a vacuum of silence that echoed in Ben's ears. As he placed the phone down, his thoughts felt tangled and chaotic. Clara watched him closely, her expression a mirror of his mixed emotions. I can feel the weight of this decision, he admitted, anxiety seeping into his voice. It's not just about the job itself. It feels like a test of my values. I could step into a role that pushes me. But at what cost? Clara stepped closer again, her presence both a comfort and a challenge. What do you think you might lose if you take the position? Or are you more afraid of missing the opportunity for growth? He frowned, contemplating her words. The idea of growth resonated deeply, but the path to it felt littered with compromises. There's potential in this position to explore untapped skills, but I fear it might turn me into something I don't want to be. I want to lead, but not at the expense of my integrity. That's a valid concern. Are you ready to evaluate your priorities, or search for middle ground? Clara's question was a catalyst, igniting clarity in him. He realized he needed to craft a narrative that safeguarded his authenticity while embracing career opportunities. I need to plan my approach carefully, he said, determination blossoming in his chest. I'll combine my vision of who I am with the demands of the new roles. I want my contributions to stem from my genuine self, not a fabricated version of who I should be. Clara's eyes glimmered with pride. That's the spirit, Ben. It's about being strategic. Respect your boundaries, but don't be afraid to push them. The framework for his strategy was starting to crystallize. He could align his personal journey with career aspirations, navigating changes while maintaining his core values. The excitement of incorporating this newfound understanding into his professional life surged within him. As Ben stood at this critical juncture, he discovered a pivotal moment, preparing to turn fear into fuel. The fears that loomed like shadows were not stopping him. They were catalysts for exploration. Yet even with this resolve, uncertainty loomed as he faced the choices ahead. Would his efforts to stay true to himself propel him towards success, or lead him to a confrontation with an identity he wasn't ready to redefine? The stakes felt higher, and as he contemplated the path forward, a new message pinged into his inbox. Another call for a meeting, potentially shifting the ground beneath him yet again. What awaited him on the other side of this pivotal moment? Would he embrace the challenge or retreat into the safety of his current self? As Ben settled in for a meeting with his supervisor, a quiet determination coursed through him, honed by the hours he spent reflecting on his newfound commitment to authenticity. He was ready to navigate the conversational waters he had so carefully dredged over the last few weeks, the intersection between his personal revelations and professional aspirations. Thanks for coming, Ben. his supervisor initiated, looking directly at him with an intensity that felt like a spotlight on Ben's newfound resolve. "We're excited about your potential for this leadership role in the upcoming project." Taking a deep breath, Ben leaned forward slightly, his voice steady and purposeful. "I appreciate the opportunity, but I need to be clear about my commitment to authenticity. If I'm to take on this role, I want to ensure it aligns not just with the goals of the company, but with who I truly am." His supervisor blinked momentarily, as if the request shocked him. The air thickened with an electric tension, but the confidence he had built in the past few weeks gripped Ben firmly. A flicker of recognition passed across his supervisor's face, as if a veil had lifted. Understanding gradually followed. "Understood," came his boss's more measured reply. "How do you envision that alignment playing out?" Ben felt empowered in that moment, the fear that had once paralyzed him receding into the background. "For me, it means leading with empathy and creativity, rather than just focusing on metrics and outcomes. I want to cultivate a team where everyone feels valued and empowered to be themselves." His supervisor nodded slowly, processing Ben's words. The initial resistance melted as curiosity took its place, the tension in the room shifting from skepticism to intrigue. "Great. I was looking for someone who could infuse the team with inspiration," he responded. "We've been lacking that human touch and fresh insights. Your honesty might just be what we need to reinvigorate the spirit of our projects moving forward." As the conversation unfolded, Ben felt the interweaving of personal growth with professional acknowledgement. Far from compromising his identity, he realized he had the ability to shape the circumstances around him within a framework of authenticity. He could be honest about his philosophy without sacrificing his career. When the meeting ended, Ben walked away feeling unusually light. In aligning his values with his work, he finally felt like he was stepping into a larger, cohesive version of himself, rather than just representing fragmented identities. The potential that shimmered ahead felt vibrant. Returning home, Clara was waiting with dinner sprawled across the table. The familiar warmth of their intimacy greets him like an embrace, a far cry from the uncertainty from their earlier conversations. "Well, how did it go?" she asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. "It went surprisingly well," he said, the adrenaline buzzing through him. "I set the ground rules around authenticity and how to lead with empathy for the team. It felt liberating." Clara's face lit up. "So they received you well?" "Yes. Not only did they listen, but they seemed genuinely interested in pursuing a new path. I think they're excited about the potential for creating a more inclusive and positive environment." In that shared moment, Ben's heart swelled with a profound sense of satisfaction. He had not only conquered a significant professional challenge, but had also stayed true to his self-discovery. The conversations with Clara, the fears he unpacked, the vulnerability he allowed, each step of growth solidified his confidence in himself. As they settled into dinner, Clara reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "You're flourishing, Ben, and you've done that by being true to yourself. I can't express how proud I am of you." His eyes softened at her words, and he felt a warmth that had been long absent in their relationship. "I owe a lot of my clarity to you, Clara. Your strength shone through the darkness I was enveloped in. I can't turn back now. We have something real to build." Ben could see the glimmer of hope in her eyes as they exchanged embraces. He knew that this moment, right here, marked a turning point. Not just for his career, but for their relationship too. Rather than merely settling for the expectations set by society, they were crafting a narrative defined by love, mutual understanding, and authenticity. The balance within him felt steady, yet exhilarating, a reflection of the journey they had each embarked on. One filled with uncertainty, yet fueled by immense potential. Together, they would navigate the intricacies of a life that allowed them to be wholly and unapologetically themselves. And in that moment, a profound sense of achievement reverberated within Ben. He had transformed, found harmony between his identities, and not just survived, but thrived. Little did he know, the next chapter of their lives together would echo this commitment, inviting each to redefine what it meant to embrace life authentically. Now is the time to make a stand for your own journey toward authenticity and personal growth. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel for more thrilling emotional stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help the message of personal transformation reach those who need it most. Comment below with your thoughts on this amazing conclusion, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who are on their own path of self-discovery. Your support matters, and only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions.